Hi, Luke Foster here from Marketing Geek. Now today I want to talk about using your website as a business asset. So an asset is simply something that makes money for its owners, something that produces a profit. And I think that's how a website should be treated. It should provide an ROI, or a return on your investment. So the return could be in the form of getting more leads, getting more clients, getting more sales, higher prices, positioning your business so it's easy to make a sale, those kinds of things. But they're all a measurable result that generally comes down to the money the business is making. It comes down to the bottom line. Now, unfortunately, many local businesses get nothing from their website at all. These things obviously cost money to build, so they actually end up being a loss because the website just doesn't produce anything for them. And I think it's because they just don't treat it as an asset that is meant to give measurable results. So in today's video, I want to give you 4 quick points that will help you make sure that your website is an asset and not a liability. So the first point is own your domain name. Now the domain name is just the address of your website. So in my case it would be www.marketinggeek.co.nz. Now that's where your website is located. Now back in the day we used to hear lots of horror stories about web development companies that would buy the domain name on behalf of the business, on behalf of their client, and then when the business wanted to move on or when things changed in the future, they wouldn't let them have their domain name, or they'd hold it for ransom and charge them a fortune to get use of it. Now you never want to be caught out without your domain name. That's really the most important thing about your online presence. So it doesn't happen so much today, but I did hear a story in the news in New Zealand just a couple of weeks ago, so it is something you want to be cautious about. The other thing is you want to build on your domain name, not on a third-party site. People sometimes think they can build their whole website on Facebook or on Posterous or on Blogger or on Workboot. Now while those are useful tools, you don't want your online real estate to be in the control of somebody else. You want to make sure you own it. The second point is to control your website. Now there's a whole bunch of ways of building websites. They range from the very labor-intensive, very detailed hand coding through to using a CMS or a content management system, which is what I recommend a local business uses. Now, often when I take on a new client and they've already got an old site, we actually end up starting from scratch because the old site can't be updated. It's been built by a web designer in a way that only they can really use. Now, that's not a good thing. It costs the business more money. It means you can lose out on some of the things that were established, like search engine rankings. Now if you use a good CMS, it means you can easily update it, you can start with all the tech changes, and you shouldn't need a complete rebuild in the future. You should be able to just keep it updated and dynamic with how the business grows and how things change, which means that it continues to be an asset which builds in value for your business. The third thing is that your website needs to focus on marketing, and this opens up a huge can of worms with so many things we can talk about, but just keep this in mind. Your website is part of a marketing process and it needs to deliver a marketing result. Now lots of websites are just there, end up just looking pretty. They just end up being this big brochure about the business instead of producing bottom line results, like I've mentioned before, more leads, more clients, more sales, those kinds of things. Now there's a number of factors that make a successful marketing system, but just make sure that your whole website has this goal in mind, that it will deliver a marketing result, not just exist for the sake of having a business website. So my fourth and final point is plan for the long term. Now when we look at the trends, obviously less and less people are using the old media, things like the phone books and newspapers. Sure, you can still get business from them, but it's getting harder, it's getting more expensive as less people use them. And more people search online, more and more people are using social media like Facebook and Twitter, more and more people go to Google when they want to find a business, and the trend is obviously going in the direction of everybody moving online. Now that will change with time, of course, and things like mobile phones become more important, but the trend is that this is going to be very important for a long time into the future, and every business is going to need websites. Everybody is going to need search engine marketing campaigns and that sort of thing. So if you want to play for if you want to have a long-term success, if you want to have long-term growth, then you want to make sure your website has a long-term strategy. It is possible to get quick wins, quick gains, but the real business success is going to come from a website which isn't just going to be a flash in the pan, but is going to be an asset that builds and over time builds in value. Things like Google, but the search engines particularly, like to see a well-established site. So the sooner you get started, the better, and it will give you a good advantage in the future when everybody has to be online. So those were my 4 quick points to make sure your website is a business asset and not a liability. Now there's lots more to it. There's tactics and strategies that your website needs to implement, and to find out more about those you can go to my website www.marketinggeek.co.nz. Cheers!